Blog Talk Radio.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention for a moment? At this time, I'm going to put you into lecture mode so we don't have any distractions or interruptions during the call. You'll still be able to hear us, but we can't hear you. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This is Frank Mangano. I'll be your host for tonight's call. And welcome to Part 5 of our Law of Attraction series. Now, this week we'll be focusing on using the powerful emotional freedom technique with a very special guest, Brad Yates. Now, before we introduce Brad on this call, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you Steve G. Jones. Now, Steve has been practicing hypnotherapy since the 1980s. He's the author of 22 books on hypnotherapy. Steve is a member of the National Guild of Hypnotists, American Board of Hypnotherapy, president of the American Alliance of Hypnotists. He's on the board of directors of the Los Angeles chapter of the American Lung Association, and he's also the director of the Steve G. Jones School of Clinical Hypnotherapy. Now, Steve is a board-certified clinical hypnotherapist. He holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Florida, a master's degree in education from Armstrong Atlantic State University, and Steve is currently working on a doctorate in education at Georgia Southern University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the call clinical hypnotherapist Steve G. Jones. Steve, are you with us?
Yes, Frank, I am, and what a wonderful night to be here with our guest who is going to talk about something that I've been interested in for a long time, that's EFT.
Well, good evening, Steve, and welcome to the call, and I'm also looking forward to learning about the emotional freedom technique.
And you know, Frank, before we go on, I think the listeners should know a little bit about who you are. This is Frank Mangano, ladies and gentlemen. He's a consumer health advocate and a natural health writer who has authored and published hundreds of articles pertaining to natural health. He's also the author of 3 best-selling books and is an independent researcher. Frank, it's an honor to be on the call tonight with you.
Thank you very much, Steve. And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you our special guest for this evening, Brad Yates. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Brad likes to think of himself as an evolution catalyst. He is known internationally for his creative and often humorous use of emotional freedom technique. Brad was trained and certified at the respected Hypnosis Motivation Institute in Tarzana, California, where he served on the staff. Combining this background with training in energy psychology and various schools of thought in the area of personal growth and achievement, Brad coaches groups and individuals in achieving greater success, health, and happiness in their lives. Brad has worked with a diverse group of clients, from CEOs to professionals and NCAA athletes, from award-winning actors to residents at a program for homeless men and women in Santa Monica. For several years, Brad taught a weekly class using EFT and guided imagery at Sacramento Drug Court. He has been a presenter at a number of events, including several international energy psychology conferences and the Walk on Water Fest in Los Angeles. Brad is also the co-author of the bestseller Freedom at Your Fingertips, and he's partnered on teleseminars with Joe Vitale and Bob Doyle of The Secret, and has been heard internationally on a number of internet radio talk shows. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please welcome to the call, Brad Yates. Brad, are you with us?
I am indeed.
Good evening, Brad. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you this evening, and we're looking forward to learning more about the emotional freedom technique.
Oh, thank you. I'm very excited to be here with you guys tonight. Hey, Brad, this is Steve. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Steve. How about you?
Great, great. So wonderful to have you here. A technique that I've been intrigued about for a number of years, and it's great to have an expert on tonight's call. Got a few questions for you, if you don't mind.
Not at all. Fire away.
Okay. And the first thing I'd like to know is, and this is written in from one of our listeners, this is Chelsea, writing in from Virginia, and she writes, what exactly is the emotional freedom technique?
And that's an excellent question to start with. Emotional freedom technique, or EFT, is an energy-based modality based on acupuncture. So basically, for thousands of years in Chinese medicine, they've talked about this flow of energy that goes up and down the body along pathways called meridians. And in acupuncture, they stick needles in key points along these meridians in order to restore health, because they say that the nature of all disease and things like that is an imbalance in the energy system. So by stimulating key points, we bring about balance and thus bring about well-being. So emotional freedom technique is a way of tapping on these key points rather than sticking needles in them and balancing that out so that we restore this well-being, and mostly in terms of emotions. We found that emotions, the negative emotions, are also created by this imbalance in the energy system. And a psychologist named Roger Callahan was working with a woman with a water phobia and just sort of, for the fun of it, tried tapping under her eye where the stomach meridian is, and her fear of water disappeared. So he naturally was intrigued by this, started trying this with different clients, found that tapping on different points worked for different issues, and within a year he put himself out of business because all of his weekly clients were now cured of their issues.
That's wonderful. I mean, what a great way to go out of business.
Yeah, indeed. So then he made a lot more money teaching the technique.
Right. That is a wonderful story. I'm so glad Chelsea asked that question. That is amazing how that was begun. I didn't know that. What is EFT currently useful for?
Well, as Gary Craig is the one who took Roger Callahan's technique, thought field therapy, and sort of simplified it to what we now call emotional freedom technique, or EFT. And one of Gary's catchphrases is, try it on everything. In fact, there's a movie coming out about EFT called Try It On Everything, because we found that there are so many different things that EFT can be useful for. So many different negative emotions, both in the moment, like anxiety and stress, clearing it out very quickly, and also going back and clearing up past trauma, past issues, things that have bothered us from the past that continue to hold us back currently. But because so many physical issues have an emotional component to them, we also find that by using EFT for those, we also clear up a lot of physical issues, aches and pains and things like that.
Okay, so it's got a broad spectrum of application.
Very broad. One of the great things we're using EFT for now is in terms of law of attraction, because so many of the things that we want in life we're not getting because of emotional blocks. It's been said that the extent to which we're not experiencing abundance is the extent to which we're resisting it. And so EFT is such a powerful tool for clearing out that unconscious resistance, and it leaves us that freedom then to attract what we really want in our lives.
Okay, so EFT works nicely in conjunction with the law of attraction.
Oh, very nicely.
Okay. Can you give us other examples of how it would work with the law of attraction? Like specific examples?
Okay. One of the specific things, well, so many people say they want money. That's one of the biggest things when you talk about law of attraction. People say, how do I get more money? And Joe Vitale and I did a program called Money Beyond Belief, because it's about getting beyond those unconscious beliefs that we have about money. We have all these ideas about money is bad, rich people are evil, money is the root of all evil, a lot of stuff that we've been fed with. And the media doesn't help us very much with that. We see all kinds of stories of rich people doing terrible things or people doing terrible things in order to get money. So we have a lot of emotional baggage about money. So EFT is a great way of clearing that out, to recognize that money is just a symbol of energy. It's just a tool for us to use, and all that emotional baggage has been put on there and it isn't necessary. So when we clear that out, we can then start vibrating in harmony with money. We can have a good feeling about money and thus attract more of it into our lives.
Okay, wonderful. A lot of our listeners are interested in that. We all have a need for money. It's what makes everything kind of go around. So that cycle of give and take and completing it and learning how to give and learning how to receive is very important. And I'm glad to know that EFT can play a role in that.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with having money. The universe is abundant. There's so much out there. So we get into it. I mean, certainly that's another issue that a lot of people have, is it's not spiritual to have money. If I'm on a spiritual path, I shouldn't worry about money. And that doesn't make any sense, because the abundance is there. We're connected to all that is. So if we're truly connected, if we're truly feeling spiritual and connected, then abundance is our natural state of being.
Okay, very well put, very well put. We have a question here from another listener, which was emailed in. This is William from Jacksonville, Florida, and he writes, how can one learn EFT?
Fortunately, EFT is really simple to learn. I have on my website a picture with a diagram of all the different tapping points as well as audios for it. For more extensive learning, Gary Craig has on his site a number of CDs and DVDs for how to learn EFT in more depth. There's actually a number of people out there who have put out books and DVDs on how to do EFT. One of the ways to learn it is from this book that we put out called Freedom at Your Fingertips, which was co-authored by 20 of what one person considered the top 20 practitioners in the U.S.
I appreciate those comments. Frank, I understand that you have some questions for Brad.
I certainly do, Steve. Thank you very much. And Brad, I'd like to begin with limitations. What I'd like to know is, are there any possible EFT limitations?
Absolutely. With any kind of healing modality, with any kind of tool that we use for anything, there's always possible limitations. Fortunately, we're always pushing the limits on that with EFT. As I said, Gary has this phrase, try it on everything. And we're always trying EFT on different things. And I'll have people call me up and say, you know, have you ever worked with this? And I'll say, well, no, I haven't, but let's give it a shot. And we find that so many things can be taken care of with EFT. Sometimes it takes more persistent. It's not always this quick fix, but we do definitely find that pretty much every issue that people have has some kind of emotional component to it. And so by clearing that emotion, we find remarkable results with all kinds of issues. But, you know, certainly there's always the possibility of limitation.
Okay, great. So basically, Brad, it goes back to what Steve said before, is that EFT really does have a broad spectrum of conditions that it can help. We're talking about financial, health, love. Absolutely, because we create our reality. And that's one of the basic tenets of the law of attraction, is that we create our reality. So whatever is showing up or not showing up in our lives starts somewhere inside of us. And EFT is just a very simple tool for being able to work with that stuff inside of us and free it up to where we're naturally in connection with all that is, and then attract into our lives whatever we want. Excellent, excellent. And that's some valuable insight right there. And that leads me to my next question, Brad. I'm curious to know, what exactly attracted you to start using the emotional freedom technique? I had always been interested in the power of the mind from very early on. And when I made my transition out of being an actor, which I was for years, I went into hypnotherapy. And I was doing that for a number of years, and I was really enjoying it, especially because of that transition of going from an actor to a hypnotherapist, where if my audience fell asleep, it was a really good thing. But after I'd been doing that for a while, I moved up to Northern California, and I was introduced to emotional freedom technique. And in this workshop that I took with Gary Craig, he had this thing where you used EFT to clear up a chocolate addiction. And I had been a chocoholic, and we did this tapping on Hershey's Kisses. And I could not eat a Hershey's Kiss after that. I would just as soon eat the foil wrapper around it as the Hershey's Kiss, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. So there was something about it, and don't get me wrong, I think hypnosis is amazing. I love doing it. I still do it a little bit in my sessions, and I'm not nearly the expert in it that Steve is, but emotional freedom techniques, something about it worked with the way I like to work, the interaction, and there was something about it that just sort of fit with my personality and the way that I like to work, and it just freed up some different things for me in terms of the way that I work with clients. And it's also just really fast, and it's really easy. And I like fast and easy. I definitely agree with you there, Brad, and I'm sure our listeners feel the same way. The more simpler a process is, I think, the more someone will get out of it. Mm-hmm. And at this point, Brad, I'm sure you have the interest of our listeners, and I know you certainly have my interest as well. So what I'd like to ask you to do, if you will, is walk us through a demonstration of the emotional freedom technique.
I would love to do that.
Wonderful.
So what I'm going to preface this with a little caveat. When we're doing EFT, we're often peeling the layers of an onion and finding emotions that were underneath. So sometimes doing this, you're going to find some uncomfortable emotions. So anyone listening to this, if you choose to go along with this demonstration, I need to ask you to take personal responsibility. If you're not feeling in a great place, you might want to think twice about it and, call a practitioner. But if you do go through it and some uncomfortable emotions do come up, keep tapping through and clear those out. As you are persistent with the tapping, you'll move through it. But if you do choose to do it, you must hold Steve and Frank and I unaccountable for whatever you choose to go through. Do so at your own risk. All right.
I will not blame either of you, I promise.
So the first point that we're going to tap is on what we call the karate chop point, or the side of the hand. So for now, let's go ahead and tap with the right hand. And you're going to use the first two fingers, the index finger and the middle finger of the right hand, and tap on the side of the left hand, that edge right there between the pinky and the wrist. And just sort of tap there with a sort of tap, 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 tap rhythm. Gary used to say we do it to the rhythm of jingle bells, if that works for you. When we tap in there, and we'll make a statement of self-acceptance, because every issue that we have, our unconscious mind believes that it's somehow protecting us. So we want to state a level of self-acceptance, even though we have this particular issue. And then from there, we'll go and we'll tap these different points. So go ahead and put your fingers on these points as I mentioned them. The first one will be the eyebrow point, and this is right at the beginning of the eyebrow, right in near the top of the nose. Tap, 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 tap. The next point is the side of the eye, and that's the outside corner of the eye socket. The next point is right under the middle of the eye, right up there on the top of the cheekbone. The next point is right under the nose, between the nose and the upper lip. Then under the mouth, right under the lower lip, on the crease there, the top of the chin. The next point is the collarbone point, and the easiest way to find this is if you find that little U shape where the two collarbones come together at the base of the throat. And using a fist, if you tap over that area, then you get the inside ends of both collarbones. The next point we'll tap is right under the arm. This is 4 inches down from the armpit. And then the last point we're going to tap on is the top of this 4 inches down from the armpit.